Learn VR MR. Come to the Spatial XR community.
Here are some important points to note. The Meta XR SDKs we previously imported are stored in the Packages folder of our project. You can see the imported Meta XR SDKs in this location within the Packages folder. If a resource is stored in the Packages folder, it cannot be modified. This is something to keep in mind. Only resources stored in the Assets folder can be modified. Now let's click on the Oculus folder and then click on the configuration file. This is a global configuration file, and we can modify some parameters in it. If we want to develop gesture tracking interactions, we can find hand tracking support here and change it to controllers and hands. We will discuss the settings for other parameters when we cover their specific functions later. For now, let's set hand tracking support to controllers and hands. Next, let's quickly configure some XR interaction functions in the default scene. First, I will delete the default main camera object in the scene because we will use a player object provided by the Meta XR SDK. In Unity's Hierarchy panel, right-click and find Interaction SDK. Then click Add OVR Interaction Rig. Unity will automatically add a player object provided by the Meta XR SDK. The position and rotation of this player object represent the initial position and orientation when we put on the headset. This object is our player object, which integrates most of the interaction functions. It can track our head, and we can see that there is a center anchor here, which is our camera object. The view we see when we put on the headset is captured by this center anchor camera object. It can also track our controllers and gestures. Expand this object and you can see that it has already configured some interactors needed for interaction. In XR, an interaction process generally involves two objects. One is called an interactor, which initiates the interaction, and the other is an interactable, which can be interacted with. For example, it has configured a hand grab interactor here. This interactor is required for grab interactions and is used for gesture tracking. If I want to implement a complete grab function, such as grabbing a virtual object, we have already added the interactor required for grab interactions to the player object. We also need to add an interactable object to the scene, which is generally an object that can be grabbed. We just automatically created the OVR camera rig interaction player object. In addition to the method we just used to add it, we can also search for this object in Unity's project window. Let's search for OVR camera action. However, at this moment, we can see that the project window does not display the OVR camera interaction object. This is because we need to change the search option to all or in packages. As I mentioned earlier, the MetaXR SDK we imported is located in the Packages folder. This object is actually a prefab in Unity, stored in the Packages folder. Therefore, we need to click in Packages or All here to display resources stored in the Packages folder. We can find this object, which is also OVR camera egg interaction. This object is the same as the player object we just added. We can also directly search for this object and drag it into the scene to quickly add a player object. Note that if there's already an OVR camera rig in the scene, you will not find the Interaction SDK option in the hierarchy panel when you right-click. For example, if we delete this object now and right-click again, we can find the Interaction SDK option. Now that we have added a player object, let's quickly configure an object that can be grabbed. In Unity's hierarchy panel, I will right-click and create a 3D cube object. I will adjust its size and position to place it in front of our player object. Then I will select the cube object, right-click, and click Interaction SDK, followed by Add Grab Interaction. This operation is called a quick action in the Interaction SDK, which allows us to quickly configure interaction functions. Now I will click Add Grab Interaction, and the window will pop up. First, I will click Fix All here, which will automatically add the necessary components and scripts for grab interactions. You can see that it has now automatically added a rigid body to the cube object. This is a Unity component used for implementing physical effects. We can then click Create, and it will automatically create a child object on the cube, which contains the scripts required for grab interactions. You can see it has a hand grab interactable, which corresponds to the hand grab interactor we just saw. Now that both the interactor and interactable objects required for grab interactions are in the scene, the grab interaction should work properly in theory. There's also a grab interactable script here for controller-based grab interactions, which corresponds to the controller array interactor on the player object with one on the left controller and one on the right controller. Now I can run the program to show you the grab effect. I will run it in streaming mode. First, I will open the Meta streaming software, which is MetaQuest Link. There are some settings here that need to be mentioned. First, find Settings General and set OpenXR Runtime to In Use. Sometimes we might use SteamVR, but if we use SteamVR, it will set SteamVR as the default. If we want to stream using Quest, we need to select MetaQuest Link as the default. Once set, this option cannot be clicked again. Then we find Beta Testing and check all the options below. We need to ensure that our Meta account has developer mode enabled to see all these options in the MetaQuest Link software. We need to manually enable developer mode in the Meta Quest mobile app. Once enabled, our account becomes a developer account, allowing us to set up developer features here. Okay, after ensuring that the headset is connected to the computer, we can click the Unity Run button. I am using wired streaming here, connecting the headset to the computer with a USB 3.0 cable. Then I open QuestLink on the Quest, and normally it will enter a white streaming space. At this point, I can click the Unity Run button. Now, I have successfully entered the Unity scene. The view in Unity's game window is what I see when I put on the Quest. You can see the cube object I just added in front of me. Now I am interacting using gesture tracking, and I can try to grab this cube. The grab function we just configured works fine. Then I switch to the controller. Okay, now I am grabbing with the controller. I bring the controller model close to the object and press the grab button on the controller, and I can also grab this cube. So, we have just simply configured a grab interaction function, and both controller-based grabbing and gesture tracking grabbing work fine. Finally, let's try to package this Unity scene and run it on the Quest. We can click File in the Unity menu bar, then click Build Settings. We need to add the current scene to the Scene in Build list. Now it is already added the default sample scene, which is my current scene, to this list. If you're using other scenes, you can click Add Open Scenes here, and it will add the current scene to the build list. We need to place the scene we want to package at the top of this list so that when we enter the program, it will first enter the first scene in the build list. After ensuring that the packaging platform is set to Android, we can click Run Device to check if our device appears here. We also need to ensure that the Meta account on our headset has developer mode enabled and check the Meta Quest mobile app to make sure developer mode is still on. As sometimes system updates may automatically disable it. When our Meta account has developer mode enabled and our Quest is successfully connected to the computer, we should be able to see our Quest device in the Run Device settings. When you connect your Quest to the computer, you may see a pop-up on the Quest asking you to allow USB debugging. If you see this pop-up, click Allow, because only by allowing USB debugging can we prepare for subsequent packaging and program transfer. Okay, another point to note, I will click Player Settings here, which will automatically open Unity's Project Settings window for us. We can also click Edit in Unity and then Project Settings to open this window. Then we navigate to Player here. In this section, we can set the package name and version number of the application. Scrolling down, there's a parameter called override default package name. We can leave this parameter unchecked, and it will use the package name we defined here by default. And a PK file has a specific format for its package name, which should be in the format com.companyname.appname. The default company here corresponds to the company name we set above. And MetaXR tutorial corresponds to the product name we set here. Note the package name format. Now we can return to the Build Settings window and click Build and Run to package and transfer the application. It will package the Unity program into an APK file. Let's define a name for this application, and I'll call it MetaXR tutorial. We need to specify a location on the computer to save this APK file. I will create a folder called Build and save the APK file in this location on my computer. Click Save, and Unity will start packaging. Another important note about packaging is that the path where our Unity project is stored on the computer must be in English and cannot be in any other language. When you see a line in Unity's console that says "Build completed with the result of succeeded," it means our application has been packaged successfully and there are no errors in the console. However, during the packaging process, you may encounter some strange issues that cause packaging to fail. There could be many reasons for this, and I have summarized some common problems encountered by previous students. If you encounter any issues, you can purchase our course for troubleshooting. Now I will open the Quest to check the packaged application. Okay, now I will show you the scene in the Quest. The application we just installed is located in the Unknown Sources section of the Quest library because it is a third-party application. We need to open the library and switch to Unknown Sources to find the application we just installed. To open third-party applications, we need to enable developer mode in the Quest account, which I have already done. Now I have entered the Unity scene I showed you earlier, and I can grab the cube in front of me using gesture tracking. Switching to the controller can also grab it normally, so there is no problem with the packaging effect.